Hello and welcome to this Wargames Atlantic painting video. I'm Peachy and I'm going to take you through some super quick ways of painting your 10mm Azincourt English. So without further ado, let's crack on. First up, before any painting, I'm going to prepare the sprues for ease of painting, so I can get into all the nooks and crannies without having lots of feed lines in the way. The alternative is to cut all the models out, but then I have lots of loose bits on my painting area to deal with. Simply go around and cut off any feed lines to the minis themselves, leaving the ones attached to the bases, as there's a fair few feed lines attaching to the bases, meaning they're a bit more sturdy and held firmly in place. Now you can do this before spraying, or like I've done here, after spraying. No right or wrong way, as you'll be base coating anyway, but I find after the spray I can easily spot any cleaning up that I may need to do. First up, I'm going to use some dark battle dress and dry brush this all over the minis on the sprue, mostly for picking out a few key details such as the brown tan areas, but also helps identify any other details on the models too. You can be as heavy or as light as you like with this stage. Next, I'm going to pick out a bunch of details in red. For this I'm using berry maroon, and as it's the English, red seems to be more fitting. However, I'm well aware every warrior was more than likely very ad hoc in their appearance. But for ease of painting and to make the sides more cohesive, I'm keeping the English to a handful of colours, and I'll do the same with the French. Just work your way around picking out any hoods, hose, sleeves or tunics, etc. and try not to overthink the placement. Also, if you have any knights, apply red to these too. Now for ease of painting with these foot knights, I've also sprayed the sprue silver. It just speeds things along and it just makes my life a lot less complicated. Much like the red stage, I'm just going to go around and pick out some details with dark drab on my minis. Again, following the same method as we did with the red, picking out alternative hoods, sleeves, trousers, hose, etc. Now I'm going to keep this colour just for the archers, as I think it looks too much like a commoner's colour and won't really be suitable for knights. Remember, these guys are 10mm in size and you're going to need to paint a lot of them, so don't go too mad with colours and highlights unless you feel like that's the kind of thing you want to do. It's entirely up to you. Now I'm going to go around and pick out any metal or silver details, so helmets, blades, axes, that sort of thing. I'll probably make a few mistakes during this process as well, certainly in the base coat stages. Not an issue. If you do any mistakes, you can easily correct this by tying it with a previous colour that you painted in that area, so don't stress it. It's all part of the painting process. For any skin or faces, I'm going to apply barbarian flesh. It's entirely up to you what skin tone you use. As long as they look suitably human, I don't think it really matters. I chose this flesh as a bit more punchy and bright, so when I do apply a shade or a wash, it won't be darkened down. It means less effort later on when tidying up or highlighting. Now for any bows, belts, and I guess scabbards if you like, I'm just going to go and add a bit more brightness to those details with some mid-battle dress. It'll help set them apart from the darker version we dry brushed, allowing those details to feel like they're their own entity instead of being too blended in with the other brown tones around it. Again, no right or wrong way to do this. You could even pick out some hoods and trousers if you really wanted to. I'm just going to do this on the knights as well, just a few bits and pieces here, like belts and scabbards. And of course, I do need to pick out the flesh on their faces as well. Now it's time to drench the minis in some wash. Again, whatever wash you prefer. I'm a big fan of Strong Tone and Black Knight. I'm going to use Black Knight here in this case, as it dries with a little bit more of a matte finish. Be mindful when you are applying this, it will swamp the minis, so moving the wash around will be needed. You can do this with a brush, or you can dry your brush off and soak off any excess. I often like to soak it off, as I do find it really pulls around the feet, so you want to avoid that if you can. Now, whilst I was waiting on the wash to dry, I thought it could be a good use of my time to do some dry brushing on those stakes. So I'm just going to get a little bit of mid-battle dress and just dry brush over the tips of those. Once the wash is thoroughly dry, it's time for some simple but effective highlighting, or as I refer to it, the tidying up stage. As all you're really doing here is reapplying the base coat, but just on some raised areas. This way it gives a nice light to dark transition with minimal effort. Now I'll do this as I continue working my way through, so with the dark drab, again, picking out any raised areas. More often than not, I find after I do this, especially on this scale, there's very little reason to highlight. So just work your way through a few colours, picking out the odd raised detail. Nothing too fancy. With the skin, I'm just dropping some flesh on the cheeks and nose, maybe the brow, depending on the mini. And if you feel it needs it, you can do some on the hands as well. Now to help identify these as English, and if you're feeling super adventurous, I'm going to start picking out some patches on these guys. I'm going to start by picking out some white sections. This could be a white coat on a knight or a small patch on an archer's breast. Just go around and pick out the odd one here and there. Not on every model, just a few. And once you've done that, then you get yourself some pure red or berry maroon, entirely up to you, and paint a little red cross. Now this is the super tricky part. You're going to make mistakes. So again, if you do make a mistake, tidy back up that area and reapply. Also do this for any flags. I follow the exact same method, paint it white and then pick out the red cross. Again, if you're making mistakes, you can tidy back up with the previous colour. Now you could do this after you've shaded and painted the minis if you're feeling it needs a little bit more love, like I'm doing here, or you can do this during the base coat stages. Again, easy to correct, but the only downside is when you apply the wash, the markings get a little bit darker, so they will need to be a little bit tidied up anyway. So that's why I do it at the end. And again, once you apply that wash, again, just be mindful of any pooling. Now I felt the metal details on the arches need a little bit more bling, so I just added a tidy up stage to the helmet and the blades. Again, just work your way around, pick out the odd one here and there. You don't have to do all of them, entirely up to you. Now to finish the minis off and to make your life easier when you base them in blocks, I'm just going to add some textured paint, as it's a lot easier now to reach into those nooks and crannies. When I assemble them as a block, then it'll be a lot harder to get into these parts, so I find it easier to do it now. You can also clip the minis off the sprue and give them a quick clean up with a knife, and then base them loosely instead of on the sprue. It's entirely up to you, there's no right or wrong way. I just find doing it on the sprue means there's less paint on my fingers and inevitably less splodges of that texture paint on the models. And there we are, our 10mm English archers and some knights are ready to take on the French army. Again, it's worth pointing out these are super small, so don't go super mad with details, as you're going to need to paint hundreds. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!